In this video, we are hopping across the pond to Ireland, and we are going to explore one of Ireland's best kept genealogical resources, and that is the Griffith's Valuation. If you don't know what the Griffith's Valuation is, it's probably one of the most comprehensive, if not the most comprehensive, genealogical records existing today in Ireland. It was a property valuation survey carried out under Sir Richard Griffith, and these surveys cover the entire island of Ireland and give detailed valuation of every taxable piece of land. This was done in order to estimate the annual income that any given property should have produced at the time. So the Griffith's valuations were published county by county. Some counties were published before others, so if your Irish ancestors emigrated in 1855, that was the year that mine emigrated, the Griffith's valuation may or may not be helpful in finding them based on what county they came from and when that county's valuation was actually taken. So this video will go over two simple ways that you can search the valuations and also explain how to read the valuation pages because they are confusing as heck. They are full of numbers and letters and brackets and names, and you need to watch this tutorial. Okay, so here we are on askaboutirland.ie. This is where you can access the Griffith's valuation completely free of charge. So askaboutirland.ie, completely free, great resource for genealogy. So the first way to search the Griffith's valuation is obviously by doing a simple surname search. So if I type in my surname there and click search, this is going to bring me up all of the Líne results in the Griffith's valuations across the whole country of Ireland. You'll notice that they're all in Donegal. That's just because that's where the Líne family was, but if you had a more typical name like O'Toole or O'Connor, it would be in every single county, likely. And you can also narrow down your surname search by adding in the county here. The second way to search the Griffith's valuation is by location. So if you're more interested in using this resource to look at sort of clusters of families or what families lived close to each other, who was where, I would recommend doing it by location. And for this, you would put in a county, and of course you can search an entire county. This will bring you all the families of Donegal. But if you really want to get specific, you add in barony, union, and parish. Now these are all actually, it's a little convoluted, and that is something for another video, but you can play around and search by surname or location. It's just a great tool all around. So here we are on an example page of the Griffith's valuation. As you are probably noticing right now, there are a lot of numbers, a lot of brackets, a lot of little letters, a lot of columns and rows, and it looks totally confusing. Hopefully it'll become a little bit more clear after this tutorial. So if we start over here in this first column, you will notice there are numbers, and they go in order, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc., etc. These numbers are reference to the plot of land on a map that accompanies this entire valuation. So one of the great things about the Griffith's valuation is that it doesn't just give you all this information, it actually gives you a really, really greatly detailed map of each plot of land, so you can see exactly where your ancestor lived. As a genealogist who loves plotting pieces of land, this is super, super, super helpful, and very especially helpful in Ireland, where, town names are confusing. A town and a parish could have the same name, but one town is in a completely different parish, and what's a parish? What's a barony? It gets confusing. So being able to accompany all this information with a map is absolutely great. The next little column that you will see here consists of uppercase A's and B's. So A's and B's just specify that the property had different types of soil. So if you'll notice in this property on plot number 3, there is no A's or B's here, so they all just had one type of soil. Whereas this property on plot number 5, had two types of soil, type A and type B. So it gets really specific, and this isn't really something that anyone would use for genealogy, but it's extremely specific. And then over here, you will see a bunch of lowercase letters, A's and B's, occasionally a C down here. So these indicate the houses on each plot. So A indicates the house of the main landholder, and B down here would indicate a secondary house. So just from this, we'd be able to tell that on plot number 3, there were 3 people living there: Mary, William, and Hugh. Mary lived in the main house. William also lived in that main house with her because he doesn't have another letter by his name, and Hugh lived in a secondary house on the same plot. So the next thing that you will see is a lot of confusing brackets going every which way. Look at all these brackets. So the brackets serve to indicate when people held the land, quote unquote, in common. So in short, holding the land in common means that you're both paying rent and you're both financially responsible to pay the landlord the rent. So let's go over a few examples. You'll notice on 6 here, that doesn't look like a 6, but it is a 6, we have an A and a B, Joseph McBride and Brian McBride. So Joseph McBride lives in the main house, indicated by A, and Brian McBride lives in a secondary house, indicated by B. It's sort of the same situation with plot number 8 down here. So Mr. Strain lives in the main house, and John McClafferty lives in the secondary house. But what's the difference? Well, plot 8, you'll see, has a bracket binding them two together, whereas plot 6, there is no bracket. So this means, in plot 8, that Mr. Strain and Mr. McClafferty are both responsible for paying rent to the landlord. So if one of them fell ill, then the other would be responsible for that portion of the rent as well. The situation with 6 is a little different. It means that Brian McBride actually rents his portion from Joseph McBride. Joseph McBride, in turn, rents it from the landlord. And that's also indicated in this column here, which lists all the landlords and who they rent them from. So whereas Joseph McBride rents his plot of land from the Earl of Leitrim, Brian McBride actually rents his land from Joseph McBride. So let's look at another example. Plot number 11 here. You'll see there's 2 houses, and all 3 of these people are indicated on a bracket. So this means that Dennis Sweeney Jr. lives in the main house. Dennis Sweeney Sr. lives in the secondary house along with Michael McGinley. However, even though they live in all separate houses, they are all equally responsible for the rent. So understanding all these letters and brackets really just is, it takes time and practice. So it's sort of fun to experiment with the different brackets and letters and try to teach yourself by going through each example and figuring out what it means. Once you understand what the brackets mean, you sort of get a hang of it. So next we come over to this immediate lessers column, pretty self-explanatory. These are the landlords. So Mary Boyce and William McConnell rented from the Earl of Leitrim. Hugh McWard rented from William McConnell. So again, because he is outside of this bracket, means that he is renting from one of these people. Dougal McFadden rented from, same just means the person above, so Earl of Leitrim. It's just really standard. In fee down here means that it's the same person. So Earl of Leitrim in fee means that he's not renting from anyone, it's the same person. Then we get over to description of tenement, which is again really self-explanatory. House and land, offices land, bog, that's another option. The brackets here again indicate the people who hold the land in common. So you'll see that Hugh McWard doesn't have a bracket, or is not included in this bracket because he's not included in the bracket over here. So these brackets should all mimic these brackets over here. Then we get over to area. So area is indicated by A's, R's, and P's. These stand for acres, roods, and perches or poles, depending on which word you decide to use. So an acre contains 4 roods, and a rood contains 40 perches. And a rood is about the size of a potato patch. So you'll see here that this property here was 13 acres, 3 roods, and 25 perches. And you'll also notice that Hugh McWard over here, and these are all split between occupiers. You'll notice that Hugh McWard, if we scroll over here, doesn't have acreage. That's because, if you remember, Hugh McWard rents from Mary Boyce and William McConnell. So his area is included in theirs. Okay, almost done. So now we are at rateable annual valuation. So this is divided between land and buildings and is measured in pounds, shillings, and pennies. So again, you'll see a bunch of brackets. These brackets indicate that this valuation, which are bind between these brackets, make up this area. And you will notice again, our lovely friend Hugh McWard over here does not have a valuation for land because over here it says he only has a house and he rents that house from Mary and William. So he won't have a valuation for land, but he does have a valuation for his little house. The opposite is true for William McConnell, who doesn't have a house, he just has land. And so he doesn't have a valuation over in buildings, but he has it in land. So obviously the prices here in these two columns add up to the total annual valuation of rateable property. So this is just this column is just these two columns added up. And you'll notice again, we're starting up with some brackets over here. You will notice these are valued per person. So there will be a row for each person listed under occupier. But some rows have brackets combining them together, such as this one, Timothy McHugh. And that is because if you scroll over, you will see that only one person occupies it, which is Timothy McHugh. But there are two soil types that have been divided up for separate valuation. And so in this last column, they have been all just combined to a total valuation of £4. Not much. If you enjoyed this tutorial and want to see more just like it, go ahead and push that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss another video. Thanks for watching.